Thank you all. Can you all hear me? Great. Good crowd you have here. Quick introduction, Marshel, Rozario, that's me. I've been a health and safety practitioner for more than 30 years. That tells you how old I am, more than 60 years old. And I've been working in the private sector, public sector. I've been the head of health and safety for one of the local authority. And some 20 years ago, the council that I worked for was used as the trial for the stress management standard by the HSC. So in a way, I have a bit of an experience in introducing stress management standards in organization. But does that make me a specialist, a competent person? May not be. But what I think I have is there have been issues that I had to face both at an organizational level as well as a personal level that was a struggle and I've come across on the other side. So I think my adversity is an unfair advantage to me. What do I mean by that is even in my family, I have lost two very close family members to stress. I myself thought I was a tough guy who bought and brought in the ghettos of East London. I hope I don't upset anyone from East London. Yeah, rough neighborhood. And I thought I'm a tough lad who could survive. But at an organizational level, when I was interviewed under caution by the HSCs, I started crumbling down. So the talk today is on psychological stress in the workplace and a system, introducing a system. And what does a system mean? Many people do ask me, Marshel, is a risk assessment template that you can share me? Can you give me a policy statement that I can introduce in my workplace? I'm afraid, people, there is no silver bullet. There is no one thing that you can introduce thinking it will solve all problems to stress. You need to trial and error to see what works for your organization. Just because it works for someone else doesn't mean that it will fit for your organization. So to a great extent, you got to introduce and trial and error to see what works best for you. A quick introduction regarding RRC, who I represent today. We are in the forefront of health and safety training from online courses to MIFireE courses. We also provide consultancy service. We've been there for more than 45 years, both at a national level and international level. And we are on booth number 40. So after this talk, I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions that you may have. Please drop in at the booth 40, which is RRC booth. I got just less than 30 minutes to do talk on this very complex topic, which is managing stress. But I would like just focus on these three key areas. Understanding that there is an issue and who says so. So let's look at why is it such an issue that we as a national level or at an organization level, why is that we are unable to still get to grapple with that? So looking at the problems in the workplace and at a national level, then we'll be looking at some of the issues that workers generally can be faced in our own working environments. And let's look at some of the commonly stresses in the workplace. And then the final bit is, what can we do about that? So those are the three things that I would like to cover. Now let's look at the scale of the problem. German leader, a writer, says that awareness is the greatest agent of change. Why is this stress still a big problem? One of the reasons is because probably we don't have the skills, we don't have the experience to manage stress, but being aware of that is a starting point. Management guru Peter Drucker, some of you might have heard about Peter Drucker, who is a management guru, says that what you can't measure, you can't manage. Would you all agree to that? If you don't measure, how do you know what the problem that you are facing? I get a lot of pushbacks from senior managers, company directors, CEOs of companies who push back stress and saying, what is the problem? We don't have a problem. And what do I ask them? A simple question: how do you know you don't have a problem? Yeah, so we need to actually measure whether there is a problem. So awareness is the greatest change agent change. So let's measure, is there a problem? And once you have done your measurement, then you can sit back and say, I don't have a problem. Or it might show some skeletons in the cupboard, then we need to address them. So let's start in the awareness. And it can be, and RRC is one of the organization, or you can have other form of awareness. But the most important thing is everyone in an organization need to get awareness regarding what is the nature of the beast. Now, there are so many researchers done, both at the national and international level, which actually says we have a problem. For example, the TUC research back in 2022 says more than 50% of the workers surveyed, they feel that we are having a problem with stress. Mental Health UK says again 50%. That's an awful lot of people who are struggling with stress. HSE statistics, for example, says that post-COVID-19, the stress and anxiety has not deteriorated. We were kind of in a loss when the whole COVID struck us, and we were in the trying to manage them. But still, we have today, even post-COVID, we have not got to grip with it. Another study I will strongly advocate and suggest that you have a read at. AXA study. They did a study regarding the well-being in 16 different countries. And the study shows UK is one of the worst in terms of managing stress. So there are many studies, people, so we just cannot ignore them. So I would strongly suggest have a read at the AXA study, which says that close to 50% of the people are struggling with stress. So what are some of the common stress that we will face in the organization? Could I just remind you, there could be a lot of questions that you may have. I would suggest we'll open up the question right in the end. Happy with that, people? Yeah, so probably there are things that I'll be covering today. So in the end, the microphone will be coming around for you to ask your questions. So what are some of the common stress that you will face in the organization? Now, Poet David is saying alertness, curiosity, be asking questions. By doing so, you will overcome that familiarity. Don't walk around with blinkers thinking it's not going to be there. Do ask the question. So familiarity, as you know, breeds contempt. You will think that, okay, yeah, my organization has been here for so long. We all have generic risk assessment. We have a good system in place. Probably you might have an ISO certification, and you will be thinking, we are in a good place. But the question is, are we looking at issues specific to psychological issues or stress? Right, if you look at some of the issues that people face in the organization, there could be many, and I'm not saying that these are exhaustive list or these are chronologically listed out. There are many stress that will be in the working environment. And this is not unique in some industry. Every organization, there will be some of these issues. Now, when you attend a bit more comprehensive course or attend sessions or read a bit more research papers, we need to make a big distinction between stress and pressure. Every single person in this room faces pressures in life. Would you agree? Every one of us. And if you look at it in an organizational level, all of us do face some form of pressure in life. Now, we need to be thinking, how is this different to stress? Any thoughts, people? There could be some safety practitioners here. As managers, as team leaders, we have to make a distinction between stress and pressure. And I just mentioned the fact that all of these could be stresses in the working environment, and some of us may face these pressures in life. But when these are not managed, there is no system in an organization to actually address this issue, and people feel that they are left alone, then that is the stage that it can move to a point that I have no control over these pressures in life. And when I'm unable to manage, control these issues in the workplace, then it can move on to the next phase, which is stress. There's a terminology called MIFireE. Anyone heard of the word MIFireE? Anyone? Now, it is sometimes when we feel that we do not have the support, there is no support mechanism in an organization, you reach a point of thinking, I am on this on my own. So MIFireE is a Latin phrase translated as love of faith. In other words, it is learned helplessness. People feel that I am struggling, and the reason why I'm struggling is some of us have issues that could be from home, from other places, that we carry certain baggages with us. And we all have certain level of tenacity to overcome the stress that's been thrown to us by Mother Nature. But when it gets too much and it just gets built up to a point that you'll be thinking, I can't manage on my own, and I can't see any lifeline out there. There is no support mechanism either in the workplace or even at home. Then you'll get to a point that learned helplessness, or you'll be thinking, what is the point? I can't manage this on my own. So the critical thing is to appreciate that every organization may have some of these issues, and for some it will be more than the others, because the stress curve or the ability for us to manage stress could be different to each person. But the point is, we just can't gauge, we can't just measure to say that that is how much you can accept or absorb, because we are all individual. The most important thing is to have a system in the organization where people can speak to, can talk to, can raise their concern, and they will feel that there is someone out there that I can speak to. So the support mechanism is critical. So once again, the point is, every organization, there will be a mixed bag of these issues, but the most important thing is there a support mechanism in the organization that people will know that, yes, the issues that I'm facing people are interested in my well-being, and there is a system and I can actually address those issues. So let's look at some of the vulnerable people who are more prone to psychological issues or stress issues. You can appreciate that, obviously, disabled people, the anxiety that they have. And again, when we talk about disability, it could be a variety of disability, including physical as well as mental. They do feel isolated. They feel the level of anxiety will be greater because they feel that they are unique in their position, and everyone they see is an able-bodied person in their eye, and they think, I am having this disability. But when we start the conversation, we will see that there are other people out there probably going through the same struggle. So these people with disability they feel the level of anxiety could be higher. Now, older people, and I just said that I'm 60 years old. I'm glad I am in employment, but there are studies which shows that those between the age of 50 to 64 are not in employment subsequent to COVID-19. So COVID-19 has brought a big change in us, and a lot of people use COVID-19 probably as an excuse, but research shows that older people, they are having a higher level of stress because they are not economically active or unable to find a job. And the aging population is getting bigger and bigger, and organizations may put a label around them, and they might, rightly or wrongly, may feel that they are unemployable. Younger people and expectant mothers, and even back in 1999, those who know about the management regulation, it was a requirement that we undertake a specific risk assessment for mothers and expectant mothers and young people. We have been talking this since 1999, yet I don't think that is still managed well. So these are some of the issues which are real in many organizations. I do spend a lot of time in the construction industry, and it is so refreshing to see ladies getting into this construction industry. But having a conversation with ladies in the construction industry, they do share the concerns that they feel that being a lady in a man's world, as they see it, or the organization just make ladies putting themselves at unnecessary risk. So questions about their ability, what do you know about dry lining, young lady? So that kind of the macho world makes it much more difficult to female. So what I'm trying to say is that they are not easy solutions. They are real issues in the working place. What are you doing to address them? So I hope the first two sections are very, very briefly did mention to you that we have a problem, not just at a national level, but at an international level, as well as an organization. The question that you have to ask yourself is, what are you doing about it? The starting point is obviously to measure, to actually see, do we have a problem? So that's the next session that we are planning to cover. What can we do? The problem is real. It is not some kind of elusive exercises or some experiments done by someone else. These are real issues in our organization. What are you doing about this? Now, I would say start up small. There is no, as I mentioned, a single system, off-the-shelf system that you can introduce and say, hey ho, I have a stress management standard. It is a series of small things that you can start off with and see how are you managing stress. So great things are not done by one big system that you are going to introduce or bring a consultant like me. I might not be able to make any changes in your organization. I can give you guidance as to what has worked in some organization, and you have to trial and test and see whether that is applicable in your organization. So start up small, introduce as many initiatives as you can. Now, there are two very good courses out there for increasing the awareness on stress. which is listed at the bottom. They are both NIBOSH courses. I would strongly suggest maybe at least get your HR department or personal department, organization within your people within your organization to attend those 2 great courses, people. And in this course, we will be covering that it is a system approach. There is no single thing that you can, as I keep mentioning, that you can introduce. It's a system approach. What does that mean? It is that has to start from the top. You need to get the blessing from the senior managers, and it has to start with your policy statement. Some of your companies will have probably an ISO certification, and you all have a good safety policy statement. Now, my challenge to you is today, go back and look at your policy statement. How much weightage has your policy statement made on stress? Ask yourself. If you really, really want to address the issue regarding stress, starting point will be to look at your policy statement. How much weightage have you given on stress? Is the commitment from senior managers very crystal clear that we are serious about stress? So it might be prudent then the starting point is to look at your policy statement and then get the buying in from them, and they need to be preaching and promoting and saying that yes, we do take stress seriously because this is a real problem that we need to address. We can't keep sweeping it under the carpet. So starting point, I would say, a good starting point will be revisit your policy statement or safety policy statement and make it very crystal clear that everyone can see that you're really committed. Following in from that, you might want to create some steering group or working group. You might have different departments, and then it has to be the top, bottom, as well as organically, you need to introduce stress, and the best people will be at each department. And then you need to be thinking about the risk assessment, looking at the key stress management standard that to look at are there real issues. And then make sure that whatever key things that you're identifying in your risk assessment, you need to act upon, because there are many quick wins that you can actually address. So make sure that it is actually issues that you identify at point B in your risk assessment, you are actually addressing it. People are saying that I have a problem with as simple as my changing area or the toilet seat are always broken. For them, it's a small, big issue. For you, it might be a quick win to sort it out. So let's act upon whatever issues people are addressing and then continuously monitor them. So these are a system approach, I would suggest. I'm just conscious about time, so very quickly moving on. Any good system, I'm sure those who have gone through certain ISO certification or a good safety management system, you all know about plan, do, check, and act. It is about continuous improvement. Could I just introduce you to a terminology called entropy? This is like taken from the second law of thermodynamics, which says that every system, everything, physical, biological, mechanical, if you leave it as such, it will break down. So this is quite a poignant message, people. Every system will move towards a state of disorder over time, meaning you might have inherited a good system in place. If you're not really going through this plan, do, check, and act process, and again, this is covered during some of the courses, it will just die a natural death. Many people many safety practitioners may have introduced certain systems in the organization with a big excitement, enthusiasm, and after a little while, you'll be thinking, there is no interest in it. It probably dies a natural death. So what we need to do is go through this continuous improvement, plan, do, check, and act. So stress risk assessment is critical. How do you know there is a problem? And a good starting point would be risk assessment. And it is, as you all know, there is a legal requirement for us to do a risk assessment. And what is risk assessment? It is not just a template that your safety practitioner or consultant does. Even before we cross the road, we do a risk assessment, do we not? As simple as that. Why shouldn't we be looking at stress risk assessment? And the good thing is that you do not have to reinvent the wheel. The wheel has been invented. HSE has come up with excellent risk management standards and risk assessment format. Visit the HSE website, people. There are a wealth of information there that you can actually cut, paste, and borrow and steal and then format that into your organization. But we need to actually prove to ourselves and everyone in the organization that we are doing a risk assessment, specifically on on stress. So very briefly, this could be an example of looking at a plethora of issues in your organization. You may want to ask simple question there and then plot it against that 6 stress management standard and see where is your real issue. The real issue is that to do with the demand of work. So you should be able to use such a framework to identify where is your real issue. Yeah, and we are all aware of your 5 steps to risk assessment for those who are in the world of health and safety. So you don't have to come up with a new system altogether. You can use your existing risk assessment format to do your stress risk assessment. Now, I did mention to manage stress, you need to have a top-bottom approach and bottom-up approach. So yes, you can have all these initiatives from the top, but the real thing is a conversation that is going to happen within your team. So I would strongly encourage, if you have a system where people can't have a conversation, it is okay not to be okay. Everyone in this room are probably struggling and have their own demons. And if you have a venue where this conversation can happen, that would be a powerful thing. So let's start a conversation. Some of your organization may have risk assessor, mental first aider person who is a center point for your conversation, so be it. Okay, so wrapping my session today, we have RRC who are in this field, and there are so many consultants who can assist you, or there's so many courses that you can get to. Let me wrap up this session, people. It's okay not to be okay. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. So I think we're going to have to conclude the session, but you'll be around for a few minutes afterwards if anyone's got a question. Is that okay?
Yes.
We're going to have to clear the room, so please go and have a chat with the exhibitors, and I'll see you again this afternoon. But Mario's around.
Marshel.
Marshal's around. You have a question?